Well, last Sunday, 47,000 Americans walked out of church for the last time. They didn't plan it. They didn't make a big announcement online. They just didn't go back. And the same thing happened last week and the week before that. And it's not just America. This is becoming an issue. Culture by culture, it's different, but the numbers are still there. But here's a strange thing. Most of them still love Jesus. They are not rejecting him. They are rejecting this system that has grown up around him. So if you've ever felt that tension, if you've ever wondered whether it's possible to love Jesus and still feel deeply unsettled by the Christianity that you experience, then this podcast is for you. This isn't a show about tearing down anything. I am not going to rant about the many failings of institutional Christianity. I want to spend some time finding our way back to the center because I believe there is a way. And I really want to share that with you here on the Grounded podcast. In this first episode of our new season, ReJesus Everything, I want to talk to you about why so many thoughtful, sincere Christians just feel spiritually homeless right now. So if you're disoriented, frustrated, disappointed, exhausted, or questioning, you're not necessarily broken and you're certainly not alone. Before you walk away from everything, I just want to invite you to pause and consider whether what's failing you is actually Christianity and not Jesus himself. Hi, I'm Chuck Quinley. My wife Sherry and I have spent more than 4 decades in full-time ministry inside churches, seminaries, nonprofits, and faith-based organizations. And we have seen Christianity at its best. I mean, we have had some amazing experiences, fantastic stories I could talk to you about. We've seen God's presence in his people, but we have also seen Christianity drift, sometimes really far from the person that it claims to follow. So, we've had to deal with this ourselves. And this podcast is not about defending Christianity, and it's not about abandoning your faith. It's about recentering everything. I want to recenter belief, discipleship, spirituality, and mission directly on Jesus, not on the religion that is built around him, but on the living person himself, because that is what I have found to be the fountain that brings life to my soul, and I think it is what we're all seeking for. So it's just to hack away at the other stuff that's gotten in the way and go back to the center of it all. So we're going to explore the honest points of friction and frustration that millions of people feel toward the Christianity they are personally experiencing, because there are many Christianities. But I want to be honest, this is not really so much a podcast about deconstruction. We have to mention that. We have to deal with it because it is such a big thing over the last 2 or 3 years especially. I'm more focused on finding the center of it all again. Now, most conversations about this subject will leave you feeling like you have 2 choices. 1, defend Christianity as it is and stay with it. Or number 2, leave everything behind. But I believe there's a third way, and that is ReJesus Everything. And a lot more on that later. So, okay, let's unpack this situation. Something historic is happening beneath the surface of global Christianity. I'm talking large numbers of people who have been raised in the faith are no longer finding spiritual nourishment within its institutions. Let's talk about the U.S. alone. In the last 5 years alone in America, approximately 15 million regular church attenders have stopped going to church. 15 million people. Now, many others are still attending very occasionally. And still others are listening to sermons, they're still praying, but they've got a growing sense of distance and fatigue. They are fading out. it's not necessarily rebellion. I think it's disillusionment. It's like standing in a once busy train station late at night, and the lights are still on, and the signs still work, and the announcements are still blaring, but fewer and fewer people are boarding the train. There's no big protest going on. People simply stop believing that train would take them home. And that's what's in my heart as something of like crisis level importance. And, I'm on the inside of ministry, and I'm just shocked that this is not front and center discussion at conferences and denominational gatherings. It's just like everyone's looking above it, trying to get back to things as normal and continuing on the same way. These trends are solid, and we need to deal with them. And I'm not also here going to try to say this is how you fix Christianity. It's too complicated. As we get into this, even to define what Christianity is now and which Christianity you're talking about, it has become a headless global enterprise. But Jesus is still Jesus. People aren't deconstructing Jesus. Despite popular narratives, most people in a faith crisis don't seem to be rejecting Jesus. They are stumbling over the gap between the Jesus of the Gospels and the Christianity they experience in their real life. So when belief systems, power structures, and these culture battles seem to contradict Jesus' own words and his way, there's something inside of us that just resists us. And this resistance might actually be hopeful. It might be a sign of spiritual integrity. The thing is, faith doesn't usually collapse. It unravels. A faith crisis rarely happens all at once. They begin with small questions. You have quiet disappointments. You have unresolved contradictions. And over time, the weight of it all just accumulates until the structure can no longer hold. And then what feels like a sudden collapse is often really a long, invisible unraveling. It's kind of like a rope. If you think about a rope that's under tension, it doesn't snap immediately. Individual fibers in the rope begin to fray just one by one until eventually that rope can no longer carry the load. And yes, in that last moment, at the instant, it snaps. So if you're thinking about leaving, I want to ask you what you're actually leaving. Many people assume they have to choose between staying in Christianity as it is or abandoning their faith entirely, but that may be a false choice. So before walking away, it's worth asking a deeper question, which is this: am I leaving Jesus? Or am I leaving a system that no longer reflects him? And that distinction changes everything for me, because it's the difference between leaving a noisy, overcrowded marketplace and leaving the person you came there to meet. Because I think that's more what the situation is. So if you're listening to this and thinking, that's me, well, then I believe your questions are not a failure of faith. They may be an invitation to return, not to a simpler religion, but to a clearer center. And in the next episode, we're going to talk about that strange inner experience that many people are having right now. That feeling where they're, on the one hand, emotionally connected to Jesus, but on the other hand, they're increasingly alienated from Christianity. We want to talk about why that split exists, why it's growing, and why it might be the beginning of something a whole lot healthier, not the end of belief, because I really am optimistic about this. We're on a journey. There's no rush on this, and don't feel any pressure. I just want to have an honest return to the question that matters the most, which is, who is Jesus? And what does it actually mean to follow him? This is the Grounded Podcast, and in 2026, our series is entitled ReJesus Everything. So if you think this discussion could be important to someone you know and love, please forward a link to the show and help us get connected to them. I would love to hear from you in the comments section on YouTube and on Substack, which is our home at Quinley.com. That's our Substack feed. And this week's discussion question is, in your opinion, why have 15 million people in the U.S. alone quietly moved away from regular church attendance? What are those friction points? I look forward to hearing from you. God bless you, and I'll see you next time on Grounded.